gentlemen, time now is 12:08 p.m. and I again apologize for the late start. And with me is my colleague on the committee.
Great.
Very good. We didn't have anything specific on the agenda. I know I had a few questions for follow-up, and if there's anything that has happened through the end of year, I do intend to ask both police and fire about fireworks. I got a ton of calls, and at 3 in the morning, I heard near my neighborhood a whole bunch going off, fairly loud reports, bang, I mean, it sounded like grenade launchers or something else. So, fire department chief.
On fireworks or just in general?
In general, and then if you had any runs for damage or destruction or injuries.
You know, the smart fire chief would have checked before he came over here, and I did not. So I don't know if we did or not on as far as fireworks go. In general, I guess the most important thing would be that I'm going to make an attempt to get a first quarter budget revision, pretty simply, to help me get another ambulance in town, another medic to fill the fire marshal position, which has been vacant for almost 5 years now, and a couple other sort of positions. And I don't know what my chance of success is going to be, but I'm going to give it a try.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're going to go first to administration and see if they agree?
Yes.
Okay, and if they don't, are you asking us to bring forward an amendment?
I'll get in trouble with that, won't I?
Well, this is what said in this
I did sit down with George. He didn't give me an official, but he said, yeah, we'll bring that up first quarter budget revision. So I'm assuming that.
So he agreed
Yes.
to put that in the mayor's first quarter budget revision?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so fire marshal, truck, that's capital.
Medic 2.
Medic 2 is a vehicle.
I'm sorry, I should be specific, not the actual vehicle. That's no problem.
Okay,
we can
staffing.
come up with a vehicle and
Okay.
staffing for it. And
Okay.
probably, realistically, it will mean the overtime
Okay.
to staff it. For,
Okay.
whenever first quarter budget takes effect, probably till the end of the year. And then the fire marshal position. There's also, in the matrix study, they recommended that we not only fill the fire marshal position, but we also essentially give him a deputy or an assistant, so that it would probably be, title it what you will, senior inspector, assistant fire marshal, whatever we decide to call it. And they also highly recommended at least 2 public educator positions for the fire department.
And I hate to repeat myself again, but I'm going to. And so the administration through Michaela's agreed to all this?
Boy. Tentative thinking.
Don't worry,
No, I
I'm
did. I said, how are we going to approach this? And he said, well, we can bring that up at first quarter budget revision, medic 2, and the fire marshal. I didn't specifically ask him about the other couple of positions that were in there, but my understanding is that I have his support.
And I'm glad to hear that, because so often we have all these reports that come to about what we need to do to make our community safer, quote, if you will, and it never happens. And so all the money and fund balance, and that's left over from 2013, we need to do some of this. So I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And for all the entities, and I know yours is a little different with OEM because you're working out the municipal manager's budget, but it's been a quandary to me since I've been on this body is we appropriate and we give the money, we find the funding and we give the money to the administration for the appropriate staffing and resources and such. I have found in my years on this body that we've appropriated some funding for certain things. The administration chooses not to hire staff, buy something or whatever. And the money sets, as Mr. Jackson has indicated, into fund balance, and that's problematic because we've taken the steps oftentimes to make sure that happens and it doesn't happen. And so I understand the quandary, but it's just as frustrating on our end when we know we're trying to meet the objectives and the goals of the departments, but it doesn't seem to always filter in there for some reason. So it's a quandary, it's a challenge, and I know we have to all work with it. So you're going to get with us then, Chief, I'm sure, about anything with fire work related on the year's
I will make myself a note and see what we had, if anything. Nobody mentioned anything, but that doesn't really mean that much.
This should, by the way, be a pretty quick meeting for everybody. Chief, just briefly, how are you doing as far as staffing? Do you know how you did on the year-end budget? I know we won't really know until they close all the books on the CAFR and everything.
The fire department finished out the year. Of course, it's not all said and done. The dust's not settled, but we were probably $500,000 over in labor,
Okay.
and that was overtime. We were able to make it up with non-labor funds, which was, we should be able to make it up with non-labor funds. So the bottom line, in simple terms, we were able to stay within our
Within
budget.
budget.
It will be close, and until the dust settles, can't really say for sure. But that's
And
what it's looking
equipment
like.
and trucks and engines and.
We had to defer some purchases to make up that shortfall, but nothing that I feel is a crisis situation right now.
All right, anything else?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Cap Miller, I know you're representing Deputy Chief,
I am.
and all the captainries
Yeah.
at the department. Anything as far as, do you know of any fireworks issues?
I don't, and I was just thinking about that. I'm not entirely sure we can track it. I'll go back and ask our crime analyst. But generally what we do on high traffic holidays like New Year's, 4th of July, stuff like that, is we just aerolocate in case there's an officer that's close by, and that way everybody can hear kind of where the major areas are. We don't dispatch officers to specific ones unless there's a life or safety issue that has to do with it. So those we'll be able to track, but just in general, I don't know that I can tell you how many overall there were. But I'll go back and check. I'll ask our crime analyst.
That'd be great. You don't know, nothing stands out, I take it?
No.
You're currently captain of patrol?
Yes.
So you
yeah.
probably.
Yeah, I didn't hear about anybody getting hurt or any, like when we had fingers getting blown off or anything like that. I didn't hear about any of that, but.
Candidly,
check.
I went out, I found myself really with no parties to go to or anything, which was okay. I did some other administrative things, end of year things that had to get done. But no kidding, 2, 3 in the morning, I'm hearing these loud reports over. I actually got out and drove around for a little bit, trying to find the darn things. Could not do it. Couldn't locate them where exactly. So I didn't call because I couldn't call. I would have just given a general locate. I wouldn't have known where the heck they were at.
Yeah.
But you would have thought with all the noise, I'd have been able to say, pinpoint in, but I could not find them.
Yeah.
So it would have been.
Well, I live over by you. It's kind of the same deal.
Yeah.
It's, and then you get the military that's mixed in with it when they have those
Right.
exercises over there, and it's,
I didn't know if they were doing anything
Awful
on
hard to tell.
January 1st, but
Yeah.
it was crazy.
yeah.
Staffing wise, I know that you guys had an impetus for people for the labor contract
We did.
by a certain date. What are we looking at now currently? Or do you
We, obviously staffing is an issue for us. We lost 61 people last year, both sworn and non-sworn. Of that, 36 were sworn. We currently have 16 in the academy. The recruiting effort goes on. It's open recruitment right now, which means that we're looking anywhere we can for qualified applicants. The number of applicants that we get in the front door and stage by stage can change literally hour by hour just depending on who passes and who washes out. So I don't have a really firm number on those. But we lost a pretty fair number of supervisors, sergeants, first line supervisors, a couple lieutenants. Dick Stout just retired. This is his first week gone. And a couple of dispatchers, 2 or 3 dispatchers. So they're in the process of hiring some. I think we've got 4 or 5 that are in the dispatch academy, either now or imminently. And then again, we have 16 in the sworn officer academy, and they're about halfway done.
Yeah.
They're 10 weeks in of a 21-week academy.
16 what we started with? I mean, we haven't
Started
lost
with
anybody?
17. I think we lost 1 voluntarily. I think they just didn't show up. But
Oh, you mean right at the very
Yeah.
beginning?
right.
Okay, wasn't like
And Dick's not here either. They'll be really quick.
16.
Okay, you're welcome, Bob. That was Ernie, so you can't make it.
Okay. Municipal clerk called.
Sorry.
So the plan is to open continuous. Do you have a high projection for an academy? Are you going to try to do a lateral to try to get?
Yeah, we're trying anything we can. If we get enough people for a lateral academy, we'll have a lateral academy. But I don't know the date of the next academy. presume it's going to be right when this one is over, as soon as we get enough people to run one.
When is that projected? You know, is it spring? Like
Yeah,
April, May?
yeah, it'll be spring, and then they'll go into FTO, and they'll have 3 months FTO, 3.5 months.
Question?
Well, you know, like you on New Year's Eve,
Yes.
about 2 in the morning, I drove around too, looking for, just kidding. I don't think so. It was pretty quiet in my neighborhood, frankly.
Was it?
And I live in a subdivision where there are 163 houses,
Oh, okay.
and it was pretty quiet. So.
It is.
But one question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So did I hear you say 61 left last year?
Sworn and non-sworn.
Yeah, 36 sworn.
36
Oh
sworn,
my
yes.
God.
Yes.
Wow.
That is
That's
a lot.
significant.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr.
Sorry, Mr. Steele, did you have difficulty finding us?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I had
We,
to search the whole place.
Sorry about that. We had some signage out by the Assembly Chamber.
We saw it. We saw it.
For the record, Mr. Steele has joined us. Not a member of the committee, but by golly, he's steadfast. We've already talked with the fire department. The chief is advising us, we'll be back briefly, but they're likely going to come through the administration's first quarter budget revisions, asking for staffing for Medic 2, a fire marshal, a few other positions, fire prevention, and I think like an assistant, however they classify it for the fire marshal, or the arson investigator.
You only have one at the moment?
One arson investigator, yes.
Problematic. Police are saying they lost 61 people, of which 36 were sworn in 2013. And we've requested the amount of calls or runs on fireworks issues on New Year's Eve, 1st of January. I don't know about you, but I got a lot of calls, emails, and
I was babysitting my dogs in the dark corner of the house. So,
I got some story about some guy driving all the way to South End, I think, to Turnigan Pass, and realized the roads were pretty crappy, didn't know where to go to hide with his animals or something, and came back.
no place to.
It's amazing.
Please,
How about budget-wise, Chief? I'm guessing with all the losses, that you're probably okay on budget?
We are. I don't know the exact figure, but I know our overtime budget is up a little, but not up as much as I would expect. We've been calling in quite a bit of overtime for staffing on both patrol. It's due to a couple of things. One is we've been able to maintain our training. We've had some studies and some national experts that are giving us some advice about things like use of force. We're revamping our use of force policy, things like that. So overall, we're not doing too badly budget-wise, but it is due specifically to personnel savings.
So I guess the only other one would be is, with a follow-up to that, we've yet to see the school district budget's request coming in, which I think we take up just before first quarter.
You mean the $750,000 that they don't
Yes.
have to pay?
Yes.
It's just a check they don't have to write. That's all it is. To the city.
It's a bill they shouldn't receive.
So my thinking is, depending on what their budget requests, they may not budget for any school resource officers. Is the department prepared for that, just in case?
I don't know what the chief's thought about that is. I've not talked to him.
I've heard some conversations. I don't know. We have yet to see their budget, but that should be soon, right?
Yeah, if I may, the budget will be to us in March, but when we had our joint school board assembly meeting, they made some indications that they simply just weren't gonna pay for it. You know, and so I don't know if that's true or not, but I agreed with them, frankly.
They're looking at about a $20 million loss that
Anyway.
they have to make up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gates.
I did talk to the chief in one of our meetings and asked him his opinion of the resource officers, whether or not that was good community policing. And he was very high praise for the resource officers and indicated there was no intent for him to pull those back to the street or anything, that it was a good use of swamps or something. So I don't know from that point of view whether or not it's a bad thing that if you get a surprise and you don't have $1.5 million worth of funding in your budget that you expect to have, that would be a surprise.
Could be.
So I hope it's covered.
Well, that's what I was addressing. And we're talking to Captain Patrol, by the way.
Well, I can speak from strictly a patrol standpoint. The last time I checked, when I was in charge of SROs and the crime suppression, the SROs were answering about 9,000 calls for service a year. Those are calls for service that would fall to my division now. And And so from my perspective, obviously, I would rather have patrol guys out answering patrol stuff and have people that are familiar with schools, in the schools, trying to mitigate some of the damage and prevent some of the damage rather than after the fact patrol officer responding to some place that's unfamiliar, dealing with people that aren't familiar.
Well, from our perspective, first quarter budget revision, we may need to address it if the March presentation of the ASD's budget doesn't include the SRO money. Because then you're looking at, as Mr. Steele said, it's about $3 million, I think.
Well, the total cost, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is $3 million, and we tried to get,
The entire read.
we tried to get one and a half, and the mayor didn't veto $750,000 that they don't have to write a check for, so obviously the mayor has covered that within the police department's budget. So the only thing you need to concern ourselves with right now is that the school district decides that they aren't gonna write a check to the city. But I wouldn't worry about it right now. Let's stress it if and when that happens.
Yeah, I've made a note for the chief, and I'll talk to him about it, give him a heads up.
Just some conversation.
And, Mr. Chairman, I hate to leave, but I got a 12:30 meeting, and I'm so sorry. And thanks everybody for being here and Happy New Year.
Mr. Steele, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Okay.
Well, before you move on, though, what I really came for
Okay.
is to, you might want to hear this,
Okay.
is I want to talk about a project that I've been working on for probably the last year, and that's to hire a crime analyst that takes place with Lou Reed, who we lost a little over a year ago. Brian Morberg is our new crime analyst, and the direction we started going in is less administrative crime analysis, which is preparing the UCR reports and stuff like that, and to start taking a look more at how we can send our resources to places where they're needed. And along with that, what we did is we bought into a new crime analysis software program called BEAR, B-A-I-R, analysis. It's got 3 components. It's got one that's open to the public. So very soon, as soon as we get the bridges hooked up, the public will actually be able to get on the APD's website and will be able to do some of their own crime analysis. They'll be able to look and see where within general areas where the thefts are taking place, where the burglaries are taking place, where the DUIs, the crashes. They can do just a ton of stuff on there. The second place is a place that's open for any sworn officer in the department. Officers can get in. If they have a question, like you're working Mountain View when you guys were doing the CAP project, you get up there and you say, okay, who's the top 3 people that we've contacted over the past 60 days in Mountain View? As a patrol officer, you can pull that up. You don't need to talk to anybody. You don't need to do anything. You have access to the system. You can read all those reports. You can do all of that kind of stuff. That'll be open to every sworn officer in the department. And then the third layer of that is actually crime analysis, full depth analysis, where our crime analyst and the clerk, Brian and Amy, are actually go in and actually take a look at trends and say, okay, this is some of the things that I've been picking up when I've been doing these reports, and actually direct operations from the different divisions, patrol, crime suppression, and detectives, so that we can start to get a more focused approach to, say, the top 3 people who are causing problems in the city. So as soon as we hook up and get all of our reports and data dumped into the system and kick it off, we're hoping, sometime in the next 6 months, then that's what kind of what I've been working on and really excited about.
That's pretty awesome.
So,
Thank you.
and you will hear something about it when it
Thanks, I appreciate that.
To that end, will you be able to coordinate with other agencies that operate within the Anchorage rule? Like
Yes, what they need to do, then once that's done, the next thing that I need to do is to sell the troopers and UPD and Palmer and Wasilla that they can dump their reports into the system. And once they do that, then we can have truly a unified kind of thing for South Central Alaska. The more people that get information into the system, obviously the more powerful the system is going to be. And they can do it, BEAR has it set up so they can put their reports in and they can gain information. They don't have to buy into the system like APD did. Of course, they'll have limited functionality, but they'll still be able to get some benefit by virtue of the fact that they put their reports in there.
So is that done every shift? Is it? So it's real time almost.
It will be almost real time. We have it set up right now to be done twice a day. We're thinking we're going to get eventually down to once an hour, so it will be almost real time.
And it's available
But that's
to the patrol cars on there?
but that's flexible. They have to be at a hotspot. It's internet connection, but so they'll have to get to a Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But it will be available on the laptops in the patrol cars as long as they pull up to an access point somewhere.
That's actually pretty handy. I know, having worked a case on the UPD side, it was all a lot of manual footwork, months and months of effort to try to coordinate with. Yeah, and basically, I ended up adopting APD cases they didn't have time to work on, but the coordination was good and worked, but it just, takes a little more time.
It seems to me the community councils used to have, not real time, but that they could call up their area and they could see what crimes were happening or had happened.
We
And I don't know
spend a
what the
pretty
delay is.
significant amount of our crime analysis time answering questions from the public about what's going on in my community council area. So once we get this online, people will be able to do that. Like community council, they'll be able to pull it right up at the meeting, and they'll be able to manipulate the question in any way that they want to and get the answer while they're right there at the meeting. They won't have to call in. And so that time will be spent doing kind of real traditional crime analysis.
And see what the break-ins are in the neighborhood and so on.
Yep.
So I had a question, Public Safety Committee from the University of Center, Mr. Alan Millspawn, please.
Well, I'm on the UAA over here at Community Council, and I do get quarterly reports from Ryan.
Right.
He's fantastic. But I know, I think last month, a couple months ago, I could go online on the EPD, and I could do just what you're saying, Mr. Steele there, get reports of certain areas and all different types. So is this different than that?
That's the leading edge of where we're going.
That's great, because I was really impressed with what
Right.
I saw then.
Yeah, that's only the leading edge. Eventually, you'll see the format change a little, and you'll be able to get even more than what you're getting now.
Great.
Any else have questions for the captain? I want to just hang for a few more minutes. We should be done shortly. Emergency management, Mr. Fitch.
Big thing that we got going right now, of course, is the security vulnerable assessment that's going around. We're working with the fire department right now. We're doing their facilities. We'll be doing APD next week, or following week. We'll do their facility, and then we'll be hitting off the rest of the municipality facilities.
How long do you think it'll take?
It takes, each one takes about 2 hours to do, so, it's gonna be into about March, April, it'll be a while before, and then we'll get the report back probably near the end of the year, back from the state on all of that.
And a question I would have is, does that also include school district or any other?
No, we're not doing the school district, we're just concentrating on municipality of Anchorage, facilities that are owned by the city right now. Schools, did their own assessment, and they can do, this with the state when they get a chance.
About leased facilities.
What's that?
Leased facilities?
No, we're not gonna do a lease. The reason why it's whatever corrections that we're gonna make, we'll pay for, like putting in cameras or fixing doors, stuff like that. So it's kind of what we own first, so we're gonna knock that big chunk out of the way first, so.
Do you intend to do the lease properties?
Probably not. It depends. The state wants to deal with people that they can actually change things. So if it's doing with the lease.
Some of the leases are that as tenants we're responsible for
Right.
things like that as well. So
So it's a state-run program, so they make the call on who we're going to do and what we're going to do. So. And then Alaska Shield Northern Edge is coming up in March. So we're doing the final planning conference, which is next week, and that's to solidify all our exercises that we'll be doing during that event. So that's coming up March 27th.
Do we anticipate, are we going to be using the EOC?
Yeah.
Standing it on?
Yeah, Friday we'll have a full EOC ramp up that week, and then we're going to do, Saturday is going to be the evacuation of the Pioneer Home to Fairview Rec Center. We'll be doing a simulated evacuation. So and then, of course, the fire department has hazmat drills going on and urban search and rescue drills going on during that period. So
Will the police department will they be involved too? Or
they're not doing much. They're part of the EOC, but no, we don't have any facilities where they're going to be running around like crazy or anything like that.
All right, well, let us know. I'll probably hit you back up again in either March or February or March, just to, if there's anything we need to.
Yeah, prior to, we'll let you know. And of course, the invite is always standing. If you guys want to bring people to the EOC during our big ramp up, to see how we work, that's always open. So.
Need to do that.
Be awesome, they do that. Thank you. And Health and Human Services, last but
I
not
think
least.
we were going to be doing some transport exercises as well.
Yeah, and you're also,
Exercise
not
bus.
to put you on the spot, they'll also be doing a federal medical station stand-up.
Right.
Stand-up, alternate care site.
Alternate care center. Health department, some good news. We're getting some hires in public health nursing. Got a new nurse supervisor that just started, and I think public health educator very soon. So we're finally getting some movement out of employee relations. There seemed to be a new era there, which is good. We've been waiting a long time. I do have some preliminary stats on impacts of the expanded Anchorage Safety Patrol stuff. And it's early. It's like just 2 full months. That
Can I get an extra if you have?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll give you all of
Yeah, a
them.
couple will, they want to.
Thanks. So I think October 21st they started the expanded service after you guys appropriated the money for it. And again, really just 2 full months of data, but it looks like bottom line is that it looks like we're reducing the demand for APD services by about 40 to 50% as a consequence of the expanded service. So that's pretty fair. It looked like if you compare 2012 to 2013, between January and October, the amount of transports that APD was doing was up about 14%, and then after the service started, they're down 34%. So that's pretty significant. And I think that's, I hear anecdotally that it does make an impact as well. I don't know how it, I think fire is happy with the way things are going, as we say, understand from draws.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
So we have, excuse me, we have all the, I guess there were some new hires that went along with the new van, and so they're all on board, they're all trained, working this
Yeah, that's
winter.
my understanding. They've gone from 3 vans, 3 shifts.
Yeah.
Basically, they covered a 1 8-hour period with a double van shift, and then the other with a single van shift.
Yeah.
Now it's 24/7 service, and then 16 hours are covered by 2 vans. So
How is the capacity of the center, sleep-off center? I mean, are we reaching capacity on some?
well, it's I think through November it hasn't been that. I mean, we're running
We
okay.
haven't- yeah, it hasn't
December, we don't have the numbers, solid numbers from December, but anecdotally, we hear from Richard Gahn over there is that they're up,
Yeah.
and so they're
Cold month.
And traditionally,
That's
it's been.
that's the next choke point, probably.
Yeah, and I think in the past, February, March have been the big months for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So we're yet to get there. So we'll see what's going on. I hear anecdotally, or not, I guess not anecdotally, but Brittany Matero tells me that Brother Francis is running slightly lower numbers than they were last year.
It hasn't been cold.
Yeah, maybe 3% lower. They have opened the Beans overflow, so they're operating both.
They're still
places.
keeping with the 30 in, 30 out? Or
Yeah, they're staying with that. And of course, there were the 2 homeless deaths recently.
Yeah.
Brittany tells me that both of those folks were eligible to be housed at Brother Francis, so they could have chosen to go in.
Choice.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
We had nationwide, the flu season has been hitting pretty hard. Apparently, a lot of people not getting inoculated. We've seen a lot of spike here. Any deaths related to?
Well, I'm not aware of any, no. And again, I'm not really plugged in.
There was a story here recently, seems to me. I don't know.
Yeah, there was something in the news, and I think the state epi folks are kind of monitoring the spike.
Could you make sure we get that info
Yeah,
for
you send
next
us
meeting?
some information,
if you would,
sure.
just to see if it's an Anchorage issue that perhaps we can do more public service, public safety announcements or something where
That's
we
a good
can.
idea.
Are there, do you guys do free inoculation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they coordinate with where the shots are available too.
Yeah.
If it's not there, or someone's not eligible. I guess anybody's eligible if they come down. And
I think
ask
it's,
for one.
well, and again, I can clarify that, maybe I'll send you an email, but I think I understand that, yeah, it's basically free for anybody at this point. The administrative fee has been waived. And
Shamefully, I haven't gotten mine every time I get
I've
ready
got
to do
2
it.
kids that I've been nagging better to get their shots. They're young,
Every time I'm
young
ready to go, I
adults.
feel like I've got a cold or flu or something. Not a cold flu, but some
I've got mine.
crap.
Yeah, we don't have stats on dog problems on just know one dog that had a real problem. That was my dog.
I know. Yeah, it is a problem when you're in that. But
What can
Dick
you do?
Trainee doesn't agree with me. So.
Speaking of that, animal control, they've also requested their chair, and I'm not sure if he's a former chair now.
He prior, we got somebody to
Neil
replace
Koeniger?
Neil. Yeah.
Okay. So Neil Koeniger just stepped down after probably better than a decade or so of service there.
I think over 15 years.
And he gave us a good report here, the last meeting, if I recall, or maybe in the meeting before the last, that they're looking for more enforcement officers to address the growing concerns in the community on aggressive dogs off leash when the areas they're supposed to be in, and of course the barking issues. And we've changed the ordinance, as you recall.
Yeah,
now
they
have
have some good publicity recently too.
Yeah,
I've
and so I'd ask that you bring back to the director and let us know if there's anything we need to input for first quarter budget revisions.
Okay.
For that. And my own personal, trying to eat out less, but food inspections. So let us know if we're up to snuff with that, because
Yeah, we did. We actually were able to finally hire another position, and we have a standardization officer. So we're soon to be fully staffed there. So again, I think something's happened in ER. So
Public safety is more than just police and fire. I mean, you got to think about it from all the angles.
yeah, there was a report of foodborne. I think a family of 5 got sick ostensibly from eating at a restaurant. It could be, looks like either norovirus or salmonella. They took stool samples, and I guess it'll be a week before we know whether it was one or both, one or the other. But
Pardon the pun, but it's a pretty crappy thing to do when you get from a restaurant.
Yeah, I'm on the Animal Control Advisory Board,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to speak on their behalf because I've been asked not to. But I'm on the University Area Community Council, and on their behalf, on the animals, I know that the Animal Control Advisory Board submitted a resolution for an increase of 1 officer, and we do that every year, and nothing's ever done. 17 is what was authorized by the national report in, I think, 2009, and obviously we've had more population increase since then. So in University Area Community Council, we have complaints every month because loose animals and lack of enforcement. So that's a...
yeah, no, I will certainly bring that back to the director and let her know, and talk to Deanne Fetco as well. I know she's aware of it. I was aware of that resolution as well. So. Yeah.
And then same with the fireworks. I know on New Year's Eve, I lost my dog for an hour in my backyard because after we let it out, it was hiding because of the fireworks. So, and I think we all know this. We all have the same problem.
Yeah.
So that's our big community council issue is on the animal enforcement there.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly bring that back to Janet.
And I will share with all of you, because I think it affects and impacts all of us, and that is, in speaking with the deputy director for the Catholic Social Services who runs the Brother Francis /Bean side of it, and she said that they just don't have the funding. And so the reason they implemented the 30 in, 30 out was for that very reason. If they could get some more support somehow or another, they would be able to do more with what they have. I mean, they're already running sometimes over capacity. There were a couple of weeks that we went through some pretty bad cold spells, and it's been unseasonably warm since. I mean, we had that stretch before, and now we're in it again, hovering around the freezing mark. But I think we all can share the fact that we know, just anecdotally without proof, but we know that this is just about as problematic temperatures in this winter's Seville cold, because then people that think that it's not that cold, they get out there and they're more exposed to the elements for the longer periods, and hypothermia sets in. They get wet, and hypothermia sets in, so we're likely to find more. And a lot of it is because they in their mind, they think they're going to be told they can't leave, or they can't stay, they got to leave and find somewhere else to go. So, this is not an issue that's this year, not last year. It's going to be forever. I mean, I looked in the books in this very library. The dispatch logs for the police and the fire are on notes that were filed here or in the library. And back when the city was coming on its own in the early 20s and 30s, some of the log notes that were kept by the police and the fire were that very thing. Inebriated persons, arguments over alcohol, neighbor problems, disputes, and a large percentage of those calls are alcohol. So this is not a problem that just is now and today, but we do have to try to find some real solutions. And otherwise, as you know, service providers are going to be dealing and seeing it first line for them.
Yeah. Well, you know, Brittany Matera worked hard on that Raspberry Road center, and you know, that fell through. But and you probably saw Andrea Alcro's write-up, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago in the newspaper. I don't know if there's I know it's just not the municipality's issue; it's a bigger issue than that. But you know, hopefully they'll. I think that's one of the things is missing.
Well, it is.
There's no options for
It really
treatment.
is.
You know, I mean,
It truly is. And we all need to understand, of course, again, if we don't collectively push towards it, then the end of the day, you're going to be looking for more medic rigs, more staff, more ACP, more space, more cops,
More expensive
police officers. I mean, the expenses are going to just continue to add on and grow and continue exponentially until we. So we have to look at solutions, and it's not your problem. It's just we have to deal with the outcomes, I guess, of the bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting if you look at the health department budget. The Anchorage Safety Patrol and Center is 20% of the budget. That's 1/5 of the budget. You know, I mean, it's a significant
Just
part.
picking them up, it's not dealing, it's not treatment. The two deaths, now those were not total exposure. One was in a vehicle and one was,
All I know is from the newspaper articles.
yeah,
So,
it seemed to me that they were not just folks out in the open, but they were.
I think one was in a tent. Maybe you guys.
One was in a tent and one was in a car.
One was in a car. Yeah, that's what I read in the paper.
But still.
I know which ones they are, but I don't know what the cause of death was.
Yeah.
Well, I know Fairbanks had a guy that had a propane tank in the back of his van or something, or a station wagon, and he expired from asphyxiation. And I'm not sure if it was from a leaky tank or just from the carbon monoxide of just the displacement of the oxygen from propane or from burning something.
A lot more noticed in the press.